It's David Arthur Johnston. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How's my mic?
Your mic sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, yeah, really good. Are you holding it? What are you doing? What's going on?
No, I have it set up on a tripod in front of me.
Oh, you were leaning. You can lean if you want. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to tell you
I'm
not
also
to lean.
standing up. Yeah.
Okay. How annoying does it get? Here's my first question. So you are somebody, you don't use money, you don't like money, you chuck money away, you're angry about money, and how annoying does it get for you that everybody says to you, how did you afford that? How have you got that? Are people asking you that all the time?
It's just a quaint thing, then I get to explain how I don't use money, and then they instantly go to, well, how did you get such and such? And you walk on sidewalks, and sidewalks had money in their construction and whatnot. So that I'm not worrying about pleasing other people's sensibilities.
Yeah, too right. It's just that I was, obviously putting together some questions for this, and I read an article about you, and the first thing is and it was by, it seems to be a good writer, Tori Marlin, and the first thing was I want to ask him how can he afford this coffee cup, and I thought, oh god, that's what I was going to ask him. I just wonder if that gets frustrating to be asked. And how do you get a cup of coffee?
Half the time I pull a cup out of the garbage that's still half full. But also I take advantage of the certain homeless programs and whatnot, the soup kitchen in the morning and such.
Okay. So what inspired you to not want to be involved in money?
Oh gosh. Initially I was doing somewhat of I call it a monk thing. I couldn't stomach working anymore. I had a big epiphany. I was living outside. And I made some interesting friends, and one friend stopped using money, and it was quaint. It was cool. And so I figured I got really drunk on my 27th birthday, and just pukey drunk. And I had this revelation where the only thing I was spending money on was coffee, pot, beer, and just because I had discovered dumpsters by that time, and humbly, there's enough food thrown out every day to feed an army.
Yeah.
So I just stopped using it. Not specifically as an experiment. It wasn't. There was a reason to stop money. It wasn't just this trifle. Mm-hmm. I saw that somebody had to do it, or at least in my mind, I saw that somebody had to do it. Like the food grows on trees, and the money dependency is sort of killing everything. Like it doesn't allow us to adapt.
Sure. I'm reading something just in the notes about you about the pragmatic Stoic understanding of implicit nature of God, which sounds over my head. But what does that mean?
Oh gosh. It's just the nature of the whole, like the universe itself as a single object.
Yeah.
Which is, well, it's fascinating really to understand and to perceive it that way. But the problem is, well, and my most contentious issue, I guess, would be that it's impossible to understand what God looks like when you think that humans have individual wills. Like that, if you think humans have this capacity to make a thought out of nothing, you sort of are stepping away from the basic understanding that everything in the now was led to by the moment before it. Mm-hmm. And so that everything's a single thing. It's also a martial arts thing as well, but we can get into that later if we have time. But
is this determinism? Is that what this is?
You could call it that. I call it objective truth. Like just that the believing that humans have individual wills is an implicit belief in magic. And I see that magic doesn't exist.
Yeah. So you're determined to do whatever you're determined to do, and your path was to not use money.
It seems it. I was always poor. I grew up poor. When I was 12, I had to stop putting sugar in my coffee because I figured I might not be able to afford sugar one day. And so I was sort of, always a stoic, like even as a child.
Interesting. Does it come as some sort of relief, having grown up poor or to have been poor, to then just go, you know what, I'm just not playing the game anymore?
I try not to gloat, just because I see everyone having their nervous breakdowns, slaving 40 hours a week just so they can afford to sleep, and doing tax. Well, just money's driving everyone nuts. And then here I come along with a jaunty smile, and then it's like, get the heck out of here. I'm thinking about other stuff. But yeah.
You just sounded more Canadian when you said that. I can't usually hear it, the difference between that and American, but a boot was there. I always hear. I love it. I love the Canadian accent. I've got Fred asking me in the comments, how do you feel about having a family and dependence? Do you have a family and dependence?
I have a couple kids that I haven't seen in over 10 years now. I see it as that there's very much a reason monks don't generally mate. And so to do the best for my kids right now, I have to be maybe the most unconventional person I can imagine. Like I'm all in, you could say. Like if I ever want to have a life with my kids again, I have to gain a certain notoriety that gets people to start giving me houses.
Yeah.
So very much so that to stop using money is sort of to recognize that we're in the middle of a war, and that traditionally in war, the kids go to the grandparents while the people, the dads go to the front lines.
But this is a war that I think in your heart, whether it's virtuous or not, you probably can't win, at least in your lifetime.
Oh heavens! Even though magic isn't real, miracles are a thing that happens. Like you look at the world right now, and it's madness, and exponentially more and more people are having bigger thoughts to break out of the systems that they're in, because everyone's seeing that I'm never going to be able to own a house. I'm slaving here at this job. I'm having, on the perpetual verge of a nervous breakdown. And this is the majority of all humans.
Yeah.
And so no one's happy. And at some point, mayhaps a certain thought may permeate and just show people that they don't have to be afraid, and that yes, food does grow on trees. And
yeah.
So mayhaps the systems that are there need not last forever, and may not be there for very much longer either.
And would you like to rekindle your relationship with your children? That must be very difficult to have not seen them for 10 years.
I look at it as work. Like I'm just on a multi-decade shift right now. And they're happy and healthy. Yeah. So it's not as, I'm sure many people would like to presume that there's an abandonment issue, but there really isn't.
No, I wouldn't want to presume anything, but it must be difficult. The only thing I would presume is it must be difficult sometimes.
It makes me serious. It like thinking of them reminds me that I don't get my own life, and that I have to do everything in my conceiving to change the world.
Yeah. It's hard. It is hard. I feel like I want to, and it's not my job to do so, but I feel like I want to sort of push you and go, oh, you could come on, you go, and I want you to call your kids and get back together with them. I'm sorry, it's not my business, really, is it?
Well, it is, and I understand where you're coming from. And the girl's definitely old enough to get on Facebook. Like I'm thinking that, well, and also my dreams suggest that there would be a rekindling. At the same time, you know, their dad's this fellow who hasn't used money in 20 years. And I'm not sure what picture the mother has been painting of me.
Yeah.
At the same time, it seems cold and mayhaps borderline sociopathic. But for their sake, I remain determined.
To do what? To win the war and not using money?
Well, to shine with the truth that will cure everyone of their fear.
Lee's asking, are you a free man? I don't know what that means. Is that a Mason?
No, I know what he's talking about. I wouldn't consider myself classified in that area.
What does that mean?
There's a section of society that have been calling themselves freemen, and they sort of think they can operate apart from government procedure. But at the same time, if they're still using money, then they're bound by money's social contract. So I don't give them much credit, or the Dalai Lama for that matter, or Sadhguru. Like, these are people that are not thinking, you know, how to end the tyrant. They're just thinking about how to best get along with the tyrant.
The thing with you know what? Where are you calling us from now? Where is this place?
My friend's place in Victoria, BC.
Okay. So I don't want to ask you the same questions that I'm sure you get all the time, like, you think look at that, you've obviously got to rely on the money of somebody, because I presume you want a society when nobody has to have money for all this to be possible, right?
Well, I won't be sad if my friends go bankrupt.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But then you won't have anywhere to do this call from.
Well, that's why I'm savoring it while it happens.
You need everyone to go bankrupt at once. You can't have your friends all going bankrupt one at a time, because then you won't be able to use any comfort and go to people's houses and things like that. You need the whole world to decide at once not to use money, right?
Ideally, that would be, you know, if everyone picked a day, then we could all start, you know, getting together in rooms with maps on the walls to plot where all the gardens are going to go, and how we're going to deal with, you know, at each city with the thousands and thousands of addicts that are not going to have their drugs anymore. Like, there's many considerations. And so, yes, it would be a lot easier if we all did it at the same time.
Yeah. But I can't see that day coming anytime soon. But you never know. You never know. Man, it's so complicated, isn't it? Because money has been going for thousands of years, hasn't it? Or types of it, barter and all these, you know, people would exchange one thing for another. If lots of people in a society, some people are good at one thing, some people are good at another, doesn't it make sense for people to sort of trade what they do so that they can all get a bit of it, right?
Well, I don't necessarily call it the barter system. I call it more of a karma system. If I have this stuff that I'm not using and you can put use to it, then you're welcome to it. The money is at first glance, you know, intriguing and could be useful, But at second glance, once money establishes itself, it can't allow for redundancy. It always needs to be necessary. And so we're not allowed to move without paying off someone. There's no land you can have just to live on without having to pay taxes, which involves getting into the system. And so money at its very core is anti-freedom and unnatural as far as a certain level of natural goes, but natural as far as everything that exists is natural. Like the devil's as natural as a mountain stream. It's just to respect it for what it is.
It's a tough one, because I think, you know, a lot of the stuff you're saying, I think is not wrong. I mean, money does prevent us in some ways from being truly free, or you need a lot of it to feel freer, but then you want more of it, so you're not really free. And a lot of the stuff you're saying does sound about right, but we live in a society of 7 billion people, and a lot of those people quite like the idea of money and all that stuff in society. So, do you know what I mean?
I do. And I also imagine that most would say that they actually don't like money, but they do like money.
Yeah.
Like it gets them what they want. But if you could remove that middling process and just get what you want without the money, I think most people would do that. Like at the same time, you can't just say, you know, put a big notice out and say, hey, everyone, quit money, money's bad. What you do is point out that everyone who thinks free will is real is naively psychotic. Like when you understand that the whole is a singularity, it means everything. It means evil's not real and hate is absurd. And so once you get over the first nervous breakdown of realization, that you just naturally don't want to continue enabling that system anymore. Like you won't stop money for stopping using money's sake. You'll stop money because you'll see that continued use of it is contrary to truth, and you just won't be able to stomach it anymore.
So just from my point of view, it feels like there's a leap that's happening here, and I'm with you on both sides of that leap, and I'm missing the middle bit. And that is that on the one hand, you know, free will is not real, and I agree with you. And I suppose that gives way to sort of nihilistic tendencies and like, okay, well, what is it all for anyway? It's all a bit of a, and then that's leading you to say, so let's not use money. And I think somebody else could just as easily say, it's all abundant, it's all just not real anyway, and it's all determinism, so let's just use loads of money.
Well, it's not just that free will's not real, but in the belief that humans have individual wills is a discounting of what it is to be life. Like the life goes towards peace. Like that we pretend that humans are special, but really I've seen cows express joy. Like I've seen happy dogs. Like how are they different? Like we have thumbs and we discovered fire, and that cascaded into this domination.
Yeah.
But if you knew that this is all an extension of a single motion that has sort of been shot through what we would call a big bang, that every galaxy spinning, like every leaf falling, like there's at no point has anything been random. And so you have to ask yourself, you know, that might be true, but then that means that me, myself, and these thinking processes and these words coming out of my mouth are also an extension of that.
Yeah. See, I'm with you to here. I'm completely with you up to this point. But then money in particular, why is that the problem?
because it's just the consequence when you see that the dependency on money requires you to pay the wages of people who think evil's real. It requires you to settle in adherence to money's whims. And especially now in a time where if first world countries admitted that there was a state of emergency, that we're ignoring complete financial collapse at the cost of making a totalitarian state. That if we acknowledge the financial collapse, we could actually all get together and start planting food and get on with a refugee civilization, but one that's enlightened, instead of making it illegal to sleep outside and flooding the streets with crack, crystal meth, and heroin, so people will pay extra for their apartments to stay off the streets.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's what you're saying is a larger version of, I suppose, sometimes how I feel when I've got my own podcast and I've got to do adverts on it, and sometimes I feel a little bit that way. It's sort of dirtying yourself, and it's not just the thing itself. It's not just the content itself that people are able to consume. It's like got to have this dirty money aspect to it. So I do get what I think that's sort of a very small version of what you're saying.
There's no escaping a grain of monkishness. Like when you're facing those situations, just remember patience. Like we've all grown up in the middle of this system, and all of our techniques of survival are rooted around knowing how to work that system. And so if for some reason we got to a point where we couldn't adhere to that system anymore, then our systems of survival are put us in a quandary. Well, what do we do next? And then I suggest it's not about having an alternative plan. It's about rather being dead than corrupt. And there's a karma that comes with that. Like the capacity to survive will be presented. Like you don't have to make a new system. The system's already there. We've just been corrupting it and whatnot.
So just to go back to because we only got a few minutes left, we've done a lot of the theory. I guess just to go to the practical, how are you living? I think you're making use of some of the stuff that's for homeless people, shelters, stuff like that, food and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, tent cities have been made illegal. Like sleep was made legal here in this town in 2008, and then 3 days after they said sleep's only legal at night. And so that made tent cities an impossibility, which is fine because tent cities categorically don't work when there's an addiction epidemic. That's becomes my first thing that needs to happen is ending that. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Just what you're doing, like to sort of get by, food.
Oh,
stuff
well,
like
if I was in a tent city, I wouldn't be so much taking advantage of the whatever the MAT program and the drop-in centers. But as it stands, that option's been taken away from me. And so, while that happens, then yes, I have no problem taking advantage of the services that are offered.
Well, fair enough. Hey, usually at this point, I ask people, can they follow you and stuff like that? Have you got all that stuff set up, Twitter and all those things?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Temple of Ninpo.
Cool.
And any other links or interesting things are along there where people can find me. If you look up David Arthur Johnston, you might want to tap in Victoria, BC, because it's a common name.
Okay, I can see you on Twitter here. So so you're playing the game in that respect. the Twitter and all that stuff, but not the money stuff.
Well, savoring it while it lasts.
Mm.
Like the
Mm,
electricity might not be forever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair enough. Yeah, and that's true. David, you talk a lot of sense. There are a lot of things that I find sad as well, and I I hope you're able to reunite with your family at some point. And because I think it's a great idea. A lot of this, I just don't know how long it's going to take for this war to be won. And I hope.
Well, that's why
it's,
patience becomes the mainstay. The
Yeah.
the fate and patience are the be-alls of philosophical endeavor. And so if people want truth, then they will find it.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, thank you, David. You speak beautifully, and have a lovely evening and everything. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.